As to the American mission schools, they produced hundreds of doctors, teachers, preachers, nurses, and other kinds of professionals. There were almost as many men as there were women. The first women college graduates in Urmia were Sanam, Sarah, and Mo Rasa, all of whom went on to become great educators. Many scholars and promising students were lost, along with hundreds of priceless manuscripts and rare ecclesiastical documents in the ravages of World War II. Such losses were a great blow to the Assyrians and the Iranians because they are irreplaceable. The American mission acquired a printing press in 1840 at a time when printing presses did not exist in all of Persia. The first Assyrian printer was Yonan of Chabash. He was selected in 1847 along with a few other promising seminary students for this post. Okay, goes on some more. From 1840 to 1852, 80 works were off the press in both vernacular and classical Syriac, the first being the Bible. Following the example of the American mission, the Catholic, Russian and Anglican missions also acquired printing presses for their own publications. Okay, that would be leading up to the 1900 Americanized Bible. The image of Urmian Assyrians as an isolated rural community is totally inaccurate. They were fully aware of world events, national political developments, and local news through newspapers and periodicals. From mid-19th century until the eve of World War I, 4 denominational newspapers were published on a more or less regular basis. In 1906, a non-denominational newspaper was added to the group. Zarira de Bara, Ray of Light, started publication in 1849 by the American mission. Later, the French mission published Kuala de Shrara, The Voice of Truth, began publication in 1897. The Russian Orthodox mission published Urmi Orthodoxita, and finally the Anglican mission followed suit by publishing the Assyrian Missionary Quarterly. The independent Assyrian periodical was Kokva, the Star, founded by Kashababa Niwiya de Waziraba, a scholar and theologian, who after graduating from Umar College had spent 9 years in the USA, had obtained two separate degrees in theology and science. He coined the subtitle for Kokava, that reads Kokava, a small lone star in the horizon. Although he passed away shortly after it began publication, the editorial staff maintained this publication as the voice of the nationalist Assyrians. And so forth. There were special articles on the Assyrian language, history, and a debate on the name Assyrian versus Soraya in several issues. Thus, Kokava kept the Assyrians of Urmia abreast with the latest development in the world. Okay, in the plain of Salmas, north of Urmia, was located the town of Kosarava, another Syrian centre of population. Kosarava served as the headquarters of the Catholic mission, where it established several schools, seminaries, and a hospital there. The town had a mixed population of Assyrians and Armenians, numbering 30,000. The Catholic seminary produced internationally renowned scholars such as Paul Berjan. He was the collector of ancient religious and literary manuscripts. Single-handedly, he edited, compiled, wrote, and published 36 volumes of literary material in both vernacular and classical Syriac. Kosrava was called the Little Rome of Persia. By 1918, there was practically nothing left of the Catholic mission in Persia. In one report we read, in 1923, in some places the jungle had returned, full of reptiles, wolves and savage animals. Churches, schools and houses were in ruin. This goes on about migrant work. The various mission establishments could not offer employment to the large number of Assyrian men who were receiving schooling in mission establishments. Literacy and the presence of foreigners exposed the Assyrians to the world beyond what they had known as oppressed peasants. On the other hand, there was the possibility of engaging in migrant work in Russia, Europe and even USA. Russia had already separated Georgia from Persia in 1801. when in 1828 it also conquered the northern part of Azerbaijan. Thus the Russian border came very close to the Urmia region. Hundreds of Assyrian men went to Tiflis and other border towns in Russia to work as migrant labourers or engage in trade. Tiflis was the centre of Assyrian migrant labourers who numbered in the thousands. Assyrian contractors hired Assyrian labourers to work on various construction projects, especially the railroad connecting Julia Julfa to Alexandropol. Among their notable labour contractors were Jibril Aslan, Mirza Yohanan, Ogo Tapa, and Usta, title for a skilled craftsperson, Alav Verdi Baraplof. The latter is reported to have 300 workers under his employment, most of whom were Assyrian. News came from USA that it was possible to earn between $2 to $4 a day in America if one was a union member. Since they knew some English, the Assyrian men became encouraged to go overseas. Kokova recorded that in 1907 alone 306 Assyrian men left to USA. Before long, the Assyrian villages had lost the majority of their able-bodied men. Women began to complain about what was to become of their daughters. Editorials appeared in Kokova expounding the ills of migrant work. Had Kokova known that several years later the Assyrians abroad would become the only beacon of hope for the survivors of Holocaust and would provide the refugees safe passage to USA, it would perhaps have been less critical of migration. In one issue, Kokova reported that 90% of men were living abroad and urged women to take over men's work to keep the community functional. It advised the men abroad to send sewing machines and fashion patterns so that women, organised in co-ops, could operate dressmaking shops. In 1908, Kokova kept a record of deaths at weddings for a year. The totals were 55 weddings and 180 deaths. And Kokova warned that a ratio of 3 deaths to 1 wedding forecast a similar rate of drop in childbirth, which meant that in a generation the Assyrians would suffer a sizable population loss. The village of Taka Adeshe was referred to as an all-woman village. Kokova reported that there were not enough men to even carry a coffin to the graveyard. Women had to carry the coffin in a gadoon, which was an ox-driven low wagon with no sides. The women of Taka Adeshe had also to haul their grapes to their homes and dry the raisins on the rooftop instead of the farazan, a plaster slanting platform built in the vineyard for making raisins. This was because there were no men to stay in the vineyards overnight to protect the farazans from thieves. Migrant work plagued the Assyrian families in other ways as well. In one issue, Kokova praised a woman who had refused to resume matrimonial relations with her husband unless he was checked by a doctor and declared free from venereal diseases. In another issue, there was printed a letter of an Assyrian woman sent to her church complaining about men who return home with foreign wives when Assyrian maidens are becoming spinsters. Why did the men leave their homes and families and choose to work overseas? The following are some responses as elicited from the migrant labourers themselves. When I came to the United States, US had a big name in Urmia. You thought you would come here and see lots of money, but I could hardly find a job. Finally, I found a job as a busboy in the same hotel where my cousin was working. Well, busboy. Everybody had come to earn money and return to Iran, but when the war started, they figured they better bring their families over to the US. My eldest brother was 28 years old when he came to America in 1912. No Assyrians went there or went with the intention of staying. They all went to earn money, gold, and return, buy farms and vineyards. But the war changed their plans. I do not think anyone had gone to stay there. Another one. I left Iran in 1913. I was barely 16. We were a large youth group. There were 4 or 5 from my village of Shamsha, Xi'an, and more were added to the group from other villages as we went along until there was 78. So many men were leaving out of necessity. We were not able to make a living there. We did not have enough. We wanted a life of comfort and plenitude. But the Turks raided our villages. They killed and stole our cattle. We were targeted because our homes were better finished, more respectable, people better dressed and fed, but continuous pillage reduced us to poverty and destitution. Wanted or not, we had to immigrate in order to support our families. There were not enough jobs. Just like you see today in Poland and everywhere else, there are no jobs. People are starving. They flee to other countries, so that was our condition. My father had left the country in 1983. He had left it in a group too. They wouldn't travel alone. My uncle had come to the US earlier. He was a bricklayer. He had returned to the old country, and in 1913, when I was leaving for the US, he was coming for a second time. Men went to the USA to make quick money, purchase the farmlands and vineyards they had worked for generations as sharecroppers, and become freeholders and owners. Some succeeded, but others never realised this dream because the menial jobs they did abroad did not enable them to save enough money to make their dreams come true. Besides, did not have the face to return home empty-handed. So their absence from home lasted longer. The men lived frugally, often sharing a room and using the bed alternately, so that they could save enough and send barats, or money, back home. The steady flow of barats to Urmia did help the locals to raise their standard of living. However, not all of the hard-earned money reached its destination. As there was no bank in Urmia, letters and currency were transferred by chapars or courier service. Often bandits intercepted the courier service and got away with the money. A more serious problem was the Kurdish marauders who descended upon the villages during the harvest season and not only plundered the crops but also took away the livestock and robbed the people of their personal possessions, including the clothes they were wearing. The Persian government was too weak to protect its citizens. Kokvaz reports provide a statistical base on the Assyrian villages and shed some light on the event and nature of this problem. A summary sample of the report is reproduced below. Okay. Kokvaz, Volume 1, Number 3, 1906, page 21. Kurds have stolen livestock from suburban villages. 12 homes in Kishlak looted, 5 in Badilbu. A man and woman killed, government forces repelled. The Kokha, headman of the village of Saatlu, robbed. Okay, stole sheep, killed the son of Yakub. Bahran, those river villages are destitute from constant Kurdish depredations. In the time of the Assyrians, when they after Ashurbanipal died, Assyria became weak. They were strong because he basically wanted. Assyria had its moments in history of being strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, weak, strong, and back to weakness. So this Ashurbanipal rose up, and he became this different king that was really strong, powerful, etc. And he conquered all these others around him, these other Hittites and so forth, that were continually trying to invade and take over, and subjected them to being under his boot heel, right? And they all got on, and they grew in immense power and wealth, etc., like that. But then again, after he died, they were left weak. So these Assyrians did try to fight them all off, but there's too many on all sides. There was people that were suppressed, all these countries that were suppressed, subjected by Ashurbanipal. They attacked in numbers, right? And then the Kurds took over a certain area, and then have claimed that they were originally there, right, when they weren't. Assyrians will attest to that. Yeah, they say, oh, we're originally there, we own it. Apparently they're in league with the Al Qaeda or ISIS that keep going there, the Muslim extremists. And they did voice a protest about that, but they didn't seem to care. There's something along those lines. Yeah, it's singing off the top of my head, remember off the top of my head. Yeah, these Kurds were in league with these Islamic extremists, doing raids and stuff like that. Just giving them a hard time, something like that. Yeah, so a bit of history there. Okay, Persian government was too weak to protect its citizens. Reports provide a statistical base on the Assyrian villages and shed some light on the extent and nature of this problem. A summary sample of the reports reproduced below. So there's many stories here. Volume 1, number 23, page 183. The Gala attacked twice. Bandits repelled both times by village guards. Kurds attacked the Barandus villages. Fierce fighting, 6 Kurds killed. Unprecedented peace and order in Urmia. A contingent of local fighters was formed in Sangar to protect Takava from Kurdish marauders. Even local Muslims have joined to show support. Christians are thankful. Volume 2, number 3, page 33. Assyrian villagers killed in the border fight Takava between Kurds, backed by Ottomans. See, there you go. Backed by Turks. What are Ottomans? Turks. Muslims. Yeah. Volume 2, number 4, page 44. Ottomans occupy Tagava, Kokova, pleasantly surprised to report that the villagers of Sir petitioned the Ottoman leader there for justice against the Kurds who had stolen their herds. Half of the herd was returned to them by his orders. Kokova is hopeful that finally Ottomans might be able to keep the Kurds in check. Volume 2, number 11, page 128. Robberies and looting start again. Kurdish bandits plundered both Assyrian and Turkish villages in Nazlu area, killed an Assyrian woman.